We do acknowledge there's one really big risk that scares me a lot and that I think about a lot.
We're not predicting this, but I think it's something that we can see how this could happen. And if it did happen, it could be just really bad for both the economy and for markets.
People start to think about, hey, no one's been hired at my workplace. People are getting laid off. Like, what does this mean for me? Good afternoon, Patrick Dwyer and Greg Pool here at Aligned Wealth in Miami. Today, we're going to talk about the big risk. We get phone calls on a regular basis from clients, and they're usually calling us up about, what do you think of the risk of data centers? What do you think of the risk of, OpenAI or this or that and the next thing? And, while we're very optimistic, you've heard us talk about what's going to happen with technology. We do acknowledge there's one really big risk that scares me a lot, and that I think about a lot, and that we'll talk about more as we have more information. But that is the political risk of AI.
Yeah. I mean, we normally are addressing questions that deal with the here and now, but the issue that kind of we see with politics is not necessarily today, but what we see is likely to come. And, I think there's a couple of things that we see driving this risk, and AI, we think, could be like the match that lights the fire that leads to an outcome that's, really not great.
Yeah. And so kind of, if you ask me, like, and if you listen to a lot of people who are predicting things, and I'm not predicting any of these things, I'm just saying this is like stuff that I read, is that let's just to say that we get to 2028, AI is really moving, and unemployment is at a much higher level than it is at today, and you get a scared electorate. The electorate gets scared. People start to think about, hey, this is affecting me negatively. Like, no one's been hired at my workplace. People are getting laid off. Like, what does this mean for me? I think you're going to have political problems, because I think people, when that's happened traditionally, if you look at, how World War II started with inflation, right? People got scared and they voted for really bad people, and really bad people took over, and bad things happened afterwards to everyone as society fell apart. And so what can happen, like, to define this a little bit more differently, is we're seeing all kinds of things happen in the US with ICE and et cetera, is you can have a revolution in your own country, right? And there are people talking about that. It's scary because it's happened, right? I just came back from Paris, the guillotine, that really happened. They had a revolution and it changed everything. So I think the risk we have is fear driven by change. Change scares human beings, right? It's really does at our core. We're change averse, right? And the path that you could happen is we could move towards a more socialistic policies that might, destroy our wealth over time, as they have in Europe, as it has, in Canada 10 years ago. They moved in that direction. And their economies are just really suffering as a result of a lack of innovation and more bureaucracy.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we said for a long time is extremes aren't great in politics on either side, really. Yeah. And, if you think back, what made for a really great stock market for a lot of years was gridlock, was kind of nothing really getting done. And the opposite of that would be having an ability to get something done at an extreme on one of the extreme sides. And so, what you just described, I think we can see, and I echo Pat, we're not predicting this, but I think it's something that we can see how this could happen. And if it did happen, it could be just really bad for both the economy and for markets.
Yeah. And if you start to see, like, we'll have the midterms coming up, and you got to take a read of, like, what are voters thinking about? And I think it's very important for people to take off their Democrat Republican hat here and just think about the economic impact of these decisions, because that's how we're looking at them, because we're investment people and we're looking over your investments. So we're, we want things that are pro your investments, essentially, is our job. That's our job as fiduciaries, right? And, I think there's going to have to be, personally, my view is that we're going to have a new deal. I think the federal government is going to have to address these concerns in a constructive way. And my confidence that our political class will be able to do that is really low. And it's really low because Washington, D.C. hasn't done a lot of good things in the last 30 years. If you think about all the incredible things that happened in the U.S. post World War II, all the massive construction projects, all the amazing things we did, building the highway system, everything we did, the university system, we did incredible stuff. We really haven't been doing incredible stuff the last 30 years. We haven't. And so my concern is that we just don't have the fortitude to do this. I do think the states could do it. I think if you gave money back to states, states could do a 50-state experiment, and possibly that could be a solution. But I'm trying, I keep trying to read and find if there's any real, thought leadership in this area, because it's coming soon. And our leadership class is going to have to address these issues.
Yeah. So we just wanted to share this line of thinking for all of you that accuse Pat of being a perma-bull. I want to assure you that we are bullish, but we really are thinking about the risks, and we're assessing the risks, and it's something that we're cognizant of. And it's not anything that's causing us to change our portfolio construction or our bullish view, but it is something that we're mindful of and trying to read the tea leaves.
Yeah, and we can always, by the way, we'll be happy to get into more discussions on the geopolitical stuff and all those things, because we really read a lot about these things, and they do matter, and they will matter going forward. We're in a multipolar world now that it's really changing, and and tech is going to change it even more. So thank you. Please like and subscribe to Aligned Wealth in Miami.
And share your thoughts. We'd love to hear
Yeah,
them.
we'd love to hear what you think, because really nobody knows these answers here. This is the beginning of a national conversation that we think is going to get started probably after the midterms about what comes next.
Yeah. Thank you.